Hello, everyone. Welcome to Word Funk. I'm Leon Thomas. I am joined by Johnny Maloney and a fashionably late Austin Yorsky. Welcome to the both of you. How are you feeling?
Does it count as fashionably late if we're recording this 2 days after our normal time? Isn't that just early for next week?
I was being kind.
I don't know, if we go by Austin's newfound appreciation of fashion as art, I think we could definitely say a change from a Wednesday to a Friday is artfully late.
Oh my.
You would think that this is a Thanksgiving thing. Like, oh, we just didn't want to record in the middle of a busy Thanksgiving holiday week. The thing is, I just forgot what day it was.
Which is a bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was like, are you sure you even want to do it this week? Because, like, you must be tired.
I am very tired, and there's a lot going on. I'm recording the finale of my beloved podcast in a couple of days. A lot of pressure. I have finals for law school next week. A lot of pressure. Not the reason I did not show up for our normal recording time. A lot of that had to do with my sense of time was askew because I was in and sort of remain in intense and never-ending agony.
I keep thinking about naps.
No, it's not even a sleepy thing. I think I told a related story before, which is I have been in a number of fist fights over my life, and a couple of them with my brother, Tyler, and one of them cracked one of my teeth when we were teenagers, and it got infected, I think.
Oh.
Austin,
dying.
you are way too young to start suffering lifelong maladies from fights that you got into. I object to this on principle.
I'm dying, Johnny. It's so like chronic pain is one thing. It's the worst, and obviously I sympathize with anyone who suffers from it. But tooth pain is a special kind of hell because it's just in this wet cesspool thing that we call a mouth, which is just a never-ending nightmare at the best of times. And it's also like when you get pain up in there, it goes through your whole head zone. And
It's a high traffic area. If you're living your life right, there are many things that go in and out of your mouth at like regular intervals during the day.
I constantly want to use the dang thing. Yeah.
Plus, like if your shoulder hurts, you can just, wrap some ice around it and hope for the best. But like if your gums hurt, there's only so much you can put on it.
God, I'm dying.
And you are right too about it. Just like every tooth is just tied to this bright burning flash of pain that just sits like everywhere in your sinuses. Behind your eyes, your nose, your lower jaw, your throat. Like it's just a. And so. Is this?
Let's talk about it more.
I wanna. Yeah. Here's the thing. What has spurred this? Because I assume that this is like you're having a particularly enervating attack of tooth pain, which is what commercials in the 1980s told me tooth pain should be pronounced like.
Oh, I missed that era. It's just I'm in a lot of pain. That's kind of the whole story.
It just happened. Yeah. You just woke up one morning and your body was like, enough of that.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I've been lucky up until now that I haven't been suffering the consequences of all my poor decisions that lead to this point. But, gotta pay the piper eventually, I guess.
So it wasn't like, you didn't, have a bad altercation with a door jamb or, like, see a mountain of rock candy and be like, you and I are gonna get to know each other real well, sweet stuff. It just happened? You were just like... Was it a change in the weather? Is there a storm a-coming?
Maybe. I mean, it is cold for the first time in, like, years here, but...
Yeah, cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend gets pain in her leg when the weather changes, when it starts to rain.
Mm-hmm. I got a bum ankle, you guys.
Oh.
And it gets a little sensitive when there are pressure changes as well. It's not like it doesn't hurt, but it gets sensitive and it feels swollen. It swells up.
I don't have any bum things, but like I'm not in like the best shape. We'll see how that shakes out. So when I say like I don't have any major injuries, that doesn't mean like I'm an athlete. It just means I've lived a life in which I have not subjected myself to anything that might have hurt myself.
Yeah, but I'm allowed, Leon. I'm allowed to have like a slightly like a subnormal ankle, because not only am I entering middle age, but I also, like, as a hobby for like the past 17 or so years, have practiced a martial art. Right. I think that's pretty good. You know, in my late 30s.
They call that the kick tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm allowed to. Austin's barely at a like Oshkosh bagosh. Like he probably still has overalls that fit him snugly.
I do have bagosh. What's happening?
I don't know.
Is that a regional thing?
I've heard
I know
it,
what that is.
but I've never been in one.
It just occurred to me as a very stupid thing for a grown adult to say. Oshkosh bagosh.
Yeah. So I'm looking at our recording. We're 6 minutes in. I apologize. This has all been about me and my pain. Sorry if that was not interesting to you. We can talk about something else. I went on quite a tear this week. I actually had a lot to talk about, which is why I didn't ask for questions on Twitter today. I know Leon dunked on me for quote unquote forgetting. I just thought it was going to be a short episode because Johnny has to go or something, and weren't going to have much time. But
no, I'm good for the regular amount of time that we normally cast.
Okay,
but so if we run out of stuff, we can sit around awkwardly and just make noises at each other. Like,
yeah.
There's only like a couple great questions,
okay.
but so we'll just dive into whatever Austin's been doing this week.
First. What kind of tear have you been on, Austin?
Yeah, my tear in 1 second. I just want to stop and just put a flag in the fact that I really am excited about Leon's artisanal hand-picked questions. Like only the primo shit, right? Like look, don't waste his time with like what's your favorite sandwich? Like he doesn't give a fuck. You better have brought the heat this week. He will not spare your life.
I'm sorting through them now, but you go ahead with your thing.
Okay. So I assumed this week we'd be talking a lot about the new Netflix series, The Punisher, because that's the new hot thing everyone's talking about, even though I know Leon hates, fun in general, but especially Netflix Marvel shows.
Yeah.
So I watched that, and I'm ready to talk about it. But I was also inspired to go on a little Punisher journey back through time, because there are 3 other Punisher films, and it's been a while since I've seen them. I didn't get around to the Dolph Lundgren one, unfortunately.
Oh, well, that's the only one I want to talk about.
Yeah, please talk to me about it, Johnny, because then I want to get to the 2004 one with our good friend Thomas Jane, friend of the show, and then the 2008 Lexi Alexander Punisher film. I think all of those and the Netflix series are super interesting.
That one, that's Warzone. Am I right?
Correct. That's the 2008 Lexi Alexander Punisher film. So let's start with the first film chronologically. Or does anybody have any comic book thoughts? For me, like, the Punisher is a kind of a boring premise, just like Superman. But like Superman, everyone says like, no, there's good stories. They get, there's things you can do with the premise that are better than the boring starting thing. It's just a guy with guns, and it's like, I believe you, and I've seen good ideas, but I've never actually read any Punisher comic books.
The only Punisher comic I own is the one where he shows up in Riverdale.
I've heard about that. Yeah, Archie meets the Punisher.
The Punisher meets Archie, or as the I believe the magazine salaciously sells it, the Punisher versus Archie, which it is not really.
Yeah, one imagines.
It is the Punisher versus a guy who kind of looks like Archie, who then travels to Riverdale, and in a wacky case of mistaken identity, is almost identified as Archie. But that's just too long to put on a comic book cover. It also kind of blows a spoiler a little bit.
Oops.
Yeah. Spoilers for that, everyone. Sorry. Retroactively.
I'm not going to spoil the Netflix stuff, but I'm going to spoil all the films that have been made in the last 30 years. So, Dolph Lundgren, Johnny, thoughts?
It is batshit crazy. I haven't seen it in ages, but I seem to recall very specifically somebody decided to add like a religious element to the Dolph Lundgren Punisher. Mm-hmm. He's also surprisingly like naked quite a lot of the time, if I recall correctly. I seem to remember seeing a lot more of Dolph Lundgren's body than I was comfortable seeing at the time, which is interesting because you see plenty of his body in Rocky IV as well. But
also, on a related note, Thomas Jane was fucking cut in 2004.
You bet your ass he was.
Okay, go on.
Which is really interesting because when Thomas Jane was in various states of undress in The Punisher, I did not have a problem with that. Not that I've got a problem with my boy Dolph. I think I was just too young to appreciate it. And then, like, once I got to the age where it was like Thomas Jane was, getting his kid off, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm all right with this. But yeah, like the Dolph Lundgren Punisher. Well, but every superhero quote unquote movie from that era was just kind of like batshit crazy. Like it seemed as though filmmakers were unable to grasp the idea that these characters could be popular on their own merits. And so, like, every single superhero movie that was being made in, like, the late 80s, early 90s, something about it had to change. And just, like, the weirdest things. Like, Spawn wasn't allowed to have a cape. Right?
Was he not? I remember the Spawn movie very, 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 very vaguely, but I thought there was a cape.
There was, but it only shows up, like, very briefly when they could afford for, like, the 30 seconds of computer animation to, like,
Gotcha.
they didn't mix it. They didn't mix a practical cape with the actual cape. It was just like he would jump in through a window or a skylight, and suddenly it was like cape everywhere, and then he would land and it would disappear. Like, fuck, what else? The Tim Burton Batman movie was a bit something, The only one I can think of that is, like, remotely close to the source material is, like, the Christopher Reeves Superman movies. Because the 1980s Spider-Man movie was just a wackadoo. But yeah, but it was the same with The Punisher, like, it was just... And I understand this, like, one of the things about The Punisher is there's a difficulty of trying to, like, humanize him in movies, because you need an arc. We need to see that he's changed a little bit by the end of it, which, and we need dialogue too, unless you're making a really crazy, like, amazing art house Punisher movie.
I mean, we'll get to it, but he has like 2 lines of dialogue in Warzone, and it kind of works because they don't go for any pathos. I don't want to jump ahead because there's like a clear arc to this, but if you
didn't think so?
What do you mean? They don't really go for pathos? I mean, a little bit, but it's a different tact than the Thomas Jane one. Where they spend like 20 minutes with him and his family and stuff before he gets Punisherized.
Yeah.
And it's like really drawn out. Where in the 2008 one, it's just like he was always the Punisher.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as I understand it, it was supposed to be a sequel.
Yeah.
But Jane turned it down, I think, or something like that, or he couldn't do it. It's been a long time.
Yeah, there's like a complicated development history, and maybe we can go there. But I think the more important thing is that the Punisher is actually like 2 different characters. There's him as originally conceived, which is like villain basically, or like an anti-hero at best, but even then a pretty fucked up one. But that version of the character is not what people want. Like
No.
they want him to fulfill this fantasy of just like almost like it's kind of like a conservative vision of justice without proper due process, to the point where like the Punisher's skull gets like painted on military jeeps in Afghanistan and stuff in real life. The Virginia Tech guy who shot up the school had a Punisher poster.
Well,
like
we can talk a little bit about this image of everybody as like the Punisher when we get to the talking a little bit about the series, because there's an interesting detail about one of the villains in the series that I think is pretty fascinating.
Okay.
But the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, I think we can just say, what the fuck? Like, in the first place, it's barely a Punisher movie. I'm not even sure he punishes anybody. I think he just sort of like rides around on his motorcycle and dyes his hair a couple of times and then prays to an altar in the sewer. I mean, it's my vague recollection of the movie anyways. But good old Tom Jane there, Thomas Jane.
Yeah. The first thing I noticed when I went to watch it on Netflix is that the Netflix description is wrong. It says that his family is killed after witnessing a mob hit, which is his origin story in the comics. But in the film, his family is murdered because he was an FBI agent who happened to be working a sting where a money launderer's son was killed by another guy. It's so weird. The movie seems deeply uninterested in its own plot, and John Travolta's the villain, and he is being like actively boring. Like he's trying, like it seems like they had to edit around him. It's so weird. But like this was 2004, so John Travolta wasn't like at his height or anything, right? Like he goes through periods where he's like hot, and then...
we weren't dealing with Face Off John Travolta.
No, this is like deeply does not give a fuck Travolta, and it's super lame, but he does have some other villains in there, and I think this actually does the best job of like giving him a rogues gallery. There's like this super Russian dude, there's this weird guy with a guitar, he actually does fight some villains, which actually even the Netflix series doesn't have, and Thomas Jane is just kind of fun. I like him, I just like him as an actor. And the tone is wild. So like they spend 20 minutes building up his family before they're gunned down. And it's not like the other versions where it's his wife and children. It's his entire bloodline and his entire wife's family. There's like 30 people at a family reunion. He gets holocausted. It's terrifying. And it goes on for like ever. It's like a quarter of the movie. And then it's after that, he like meets a bunch of like down in their luck, like nonconformists, and they get into like wacky hijinks with comedy music.
It is such a comic book movie.
I thought it was trying to go for some Tim Burton shit, but it can't commit to even that. I don't know, man.
I'm trying to remember. I remember my reaction to a scene, but I can't remember exactly what he said in the movie. Thomas Jane, I think he just gets the Punisher shirt. And then someone says something to him like, "What are you going to do?" or something like that. And then he kind of looks at the camera and delivers his tough guy catchphrase. I just can't remember what it was. It was something like, "Hell is coming with me," or some kind of like bullshit like that. Whoop.
Did you just say like, "I'm going to punish them"?
No, it's something like that. But it's driving me crazy that I can't remember exactly what he says because I can definitely remember my reaction to it in the theater. I just sat there and I said, "Shut up." It was just so dumb because he just looked right at the camera and he was like, yeah. What was it?
I remember the moment too. I don't remember the line, but the moment is like first his son gives him the shirt and he's like, "The voodoo man says this wards off spirits," and then later after the massacre he finds it again and he turns and looks at this guy he's supposed to be like. They're in Puerto Rico, so it's like a native Puerto Rican or something. He's like basically like a mystical Native American, and he looks at him as he holds the shirt, and it's like bad. It's very deeply bad. But then he says whatever he says, and it's just like it all flowed through me. And also his family, his wife and children actually don't get shot in the massacre. A lot of people do get shot. What happens to them is they run down a pier, and then the bad guys are in a truck, and then they run them over on the pier in a truck. It's also the whole thing takes place in Tampa, Florida. The Punisher is a New York character. Every other version takes place. I don't know. It's the Thomas J. movie is so fucking weird.
It's fun though. It's about as fun as you can make the Punisher.
And it ends with John Travolta getting dragged through a used car dealership, and all the cars explode in the shape of the skull. I don't know. I don't even know what I want to say about this movie. It's the tone is so fucking wackadoo, and it never at once tries to engage with the core morals of the series, which is what the Netflix show is basically only about. Is like, if you kill them, it makes you just as bad as them. Never once. No one even tries to broach it. He's just like, they killed my family. Yeah, dude, do what you gotta do. Like, it's totally fine. It's not even questioned. And then he just does the damn thing. Like, half the actual punishing is literally him gaslighting Travolta into killing a gay guy who works for him and his trophy wife, who dies with a fucking Wilhelm scream as Travolta throws her in front of a train.
I had fun with it. I had fun with the top. I'm not going to call it a good movie.
No, it's not
a good movie.
It's not good, but my brain was very much enjoying whatever I was feeding into it.
Yeah.
Then 2008's Punisher Warzone, which is an entirely different genre of film made by an Oscar-nominated feminist woman. It's almost like a black comedy. Basically, the Punisher is the only person in the world whose body is attached. And he goes around knocking everyone else's unattached limbs off. Everyone else is made out of Play-Doh. I don't know why. It's very good. Do you guys have any thoughts about Punisher Warzone?
I've never seen it, unfortunately.
It has some pretty good action set pieces.
Fucking Wayne Knight's in it as Micro, which is such phenomenal casting. I can't believe that's not, like, he doesn't just play a character called Micro in everything he's ever been in. The villain, which is Jigsaw, which I'm not familiar with the Punisher mythos. I assume that's like his main villain because he's also a villain in the Netflix thing, is just trying to do Jack Nicholson's Joker, which is kind of lame. But his sidekick is the guy from The Green Mile who in real life married a teenager. I can't remember his name. Do you guys know that really fucking creepy actor?
No. I've not heard this story.
Oh, Christ on a muffin. Okay, so in real life, there is an actor. He was like pretty up and coming for a while. He was Percy Wetmore in The Green Mile, the very despicable prison guard. He also played, he's one of the villains in Punisher Warzone. I'm looking up now. His name is Doug Hutchinson. He is famous for being Eugene Victor Toombs on the series The X-Files.
Oh, okay.
So his star was rising. He was also in Lost, very famous. And then he married a 16-year-old while he was 50.
Huh.
And then his career ended, and no one ever hired him again. So, The Punisher Warzone is actually like the third to last movie he was in. He was in another movie that year and then one next year, which I've never heard of, and then his career basically ended there. But he's a good actor. He's fucking hateable in this and The Green Mile. So that's a weird thing about Punisher Warzone. It's off on a little tangent. Do you guys didn't know about Doug Hutchinson? Weird dude.
Well, I recognize him now that I'm looking at a picture of him.
Yeah. So that's one thing about this movie. The other is that it's a huge financial and critical failure. The movie bombed super hard, but it has a really big cult following because it came out in a time when like superhero movies were getting more mainstream, and it is kind of a wacky slapstick throwback. It's like super violent. It's a hard R, but it's not in a way that's like it's not like gritty, right?
Oh my god!
Yeah.
So apparently, Doug Hutchison's ex-wife.
Okay.
That he married.
This is what this is about now.
2003.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking this up.
I went to theater school with her.
Are you kidding me right now?
No.
Wait, so is this the one that he got in trouble for marrying, or is his wife before that?
I don't know. I don't know which one is the one that he got in trouble for marrying.
Okay, well, now we're doing investigative journalism. Doug Hutchinson is famous for marrying Courtney Stodden.
Okay, no.
Okay.
No. It's his prior spouse.
Okay.
So you know Amanda Sellers.
I went to theater school with Amanda Sellers.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Cool. She doesn't have a Wikipedia page, unfortunately, so I can't learn more about her. That's the only way I interact with the world.
Well, Johnny, you're our window into this. What was Amanda Sellers like?
Amanda was really, really cool. Really into rock and roll music, shows and things like that. Pretty outgoing. I mean, most theater school kids are. You know. Yeah, she was neat. Good friend.
All right. Sorry to circle back to something, but it was driving me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in the line from Punisher was the Puerto Rican man said Vaya con Dios, that means go with God, and then Thomas Jane looks at the camera and says God's going to sit this one out.
Oh,
I just wanted that I just wanted that to be clear. I very quickly found a pirated copy of that movie and watched that scene while you guys were talking. Okay.
The fastest piracy in the West.
I'm pretty good. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so to finish up Punisher Warzone, it's a very goofy movie with a lot of crazy violence, and that's the thing that's most notable about it. I think it's a pretty fun flick, but also it is the most of the films where he is sad about being the Punisher. Like, even though he starts it as the Punisher, you don't see him let his family die. He spends a lot of the movie being, like, very sad. And he doesn't have many lines, but he's often very sad. And that goes into the Netflix one, which is basically all about his feelings. It's 13 hours of Frank Castle being sad, occasionally broken up by someone torturing him. Have either of you watched, and I assume this is a dumb question for Leon, so Johnny, have you watched the Netflix Punisher?
Yes.
Okay, you talk for a while.
Okay. Well, you know how you were mentioning earlier about how, like, you know, the conceit of the Punisher is this whole concept of, like, conservative justice?
Yeah.
Where it's like, as an audience, we can place complete and total faith in the fact that the Punisher is going to, like, pick the right guy to kill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that his decision to kill this guy is going to be just.
Yeah, the liberal establishment just doesn't have the guts to do what he does.
Right, exactly. Well, one of the fascinating things that I really like about the Netflix Punisher is that one of the major villains that they feature is basically a dark reflection of the Punisher himself.
Yeah. So
like,
the main thrust of the plot is like this government conspiracy shit, but that's kind of like paint by numbers boring. The important thing is in the middle of it, like someone watches Fox News and goes bananas.
Yeah. And thinks that there's this like crazy government conspiracy thing and shit like that. Like basically all of his reasons for doing what he does are exactly the fucking same as the Punisher.
Which is my favorite scene, I think, of the entire show is one with that character. The Punisher's not even in it. He's like trying to pass out like pro-gun literature outside of a courthouse, and a cop comes up to him and is like, "You need to leave." And he's like, "Actually, I have a constitutional right to be here." And he's like, "Get out of here, pal." And he's like, "This is America. That's not how this works." And I was like, "Holy shit, he actually believes that." Like, how white do you have to be to actually believe that the police haven't bossed people around for all of American history? Like, that is so fucking illuminating. And I know it's a writer put those words in that character's mouth. That's not a real person. But it's so absolutely encapsulating the entire conservative experience of, like, now they're not being fair to us. Everything was really fair for a long time, but suddenly it's not so fair. And it's just like... they do a very unsubtle job of that. There's another character who, like, literally just... He might as well just be Infowars comment section.jpg.
Yeah.
And it's like... Yeah, I can understand being extremely furious at the show if you are of a different political persuasion than me. But yeah, so I saw those people and I was like, I know that fuckface. But they actually don't... It's not like it's just, like, liberal propaganda, because the anti-gun senator is like corrupt, and one of the characters we're supposed to sympathize with, the journalist from Daredevil, is a gun carrying person, and she says so. So,
and you know, like, they still do amp up the, like, you know, the scenes when you get like later into the series when Frank finally gets a chance to, you know, face the man who killed my family and things like that. It's sort of like you can tell that the people making it are like, yeah, come on, you want him to kill him. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you gotta do.
You know what you're here for. And that's kind of the trick to writing Punisher, I imagine, is finding villains so far beyond the pale that the issue of, like, morality is just not compelling. It's like all his villains are like bad people, but mostly they're like weird costumed morons who need to be like punched or something.
Yeah,
like
people who are just like super fixated on like, oh man, I really like Alice in Wonderland, so I'm gonna rob a bank.
Or like,
and it's just sort of like, you
just
kind of need to be slapped, don't you?
But no, like the Punisher faces are like all like people who you're like, no, that guy needs to die. He needs to die right now, and then it just kind of skips the whole issue.
Yeah.
But so Netflix Punisher is good, is my thought, but it's like middle of the pack good as far as Marvel's Netflix stuff goes. It's not as
no
good as Jessica
season 1
Jones.
of Daredevil.
Yeah, it's not Daredevil. It is better than Iron Fist, obviously. I think it's around Luke Cage level, which I'm fine with. That's where I came out on it.
Yeah. You just don't go into it thinking that it's going to be the Punisher punishing. Like, they very deliberately, like, they add development and arc and things like that. Like, you know, the presence of the Punisher in the comic books, as far as I know, from what I'm, like, accustomed to, is that he's just kind of like an unchangeable force of nature. And
yeah, every comic book character has like a bunch of different versions, but like when you think the Punisher, you think like a guy who goes out and shoots criminals.
Yeah, like he's not even a character. He's a plot mechanism. He's an ending to a story almost, you know. But they actually do a reasonable job, and props to John Bernthal too, because when he gets thrown some emotional material. And he rises to the occasion. And, like, the thing is that I've always thought that Bernthal's, like, his acting resume has been kind of one note, with Shane going kind of gradually crazy on The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. And then his first appearance as the Punisher as being a guy who's kind of crazy on Daredevil. And, like, even just bit parts I've seen him in, like in Sicario and things like that, is just this, like, you know, he's a regular guy until you push him too far.
And then he does that trademark yell that he does at every opportunity.
Yes, yeah. But he does get some, I don't want to go so far as to say tender, but definitely vulnerable scenes in the Punisher that he does quite well with. So I want to give a big thumbs up to him and say good job, John.
Yeah, there's a lot of strong acting in the Netflix Daredevil. I really like the Homeland Security agent, she's basically the second main character. There's like two different plots and they intersect a little bit now and then, but they could be entirely different shows. And she is I'm going to mess up this name, but her name is Amber Rose Reva. I don't know. I'm sorry. She's an Iranian actress, and she's amazing. And her mother is played by the woman from The Expanse and Overwatch.
Oh, yeah.
Who has the best voice in, I was going to say human history, but like the history of sentient life. Her voice is just the best thing that's ever existed, and she's in it for not enough time. It's very good. Who else? There's good acting. The Ben Barnes is is that a spoiler? He's a main player in the show, and he is slimy enough, but also kind of charismatic and fun. And there's just a lot going around. Where 13 episodes is a lot. Frankly, I think that could have been cut down a little bit, but I enjoyed spending time with them.
There's some dead space in there, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not perfect. I think there's definitely things that could have been trimmed out and tightened up and so forth, but overall, I enjoyed it, and I think the Punisher is a pretty boring concept that has been done in a bunch of different ways that are interesting. So that's where I came out on my journey into this, which is like every time I talk about Superman, I'm like, Superman's fucking boring, and then I get 100 comments saying, no, read this storyline, he can be interesting, and I'm sure that's true. I never gotten around to it because of who I am as a person, but I'm sure that would turn out the same way if I did that as I did with the Punisher. So yeah, a lot of different takes on it. I had fun. It was a cool week I had before my head imploded, and now I am a neutron star of pain.
Okay.
That's
Sorry.
me dying.
Yeah.
So someone else can talk if that's cool.
I used to find Superman boring when I was younger, but like as time goes on, I just really like the idea that there could just be someone who's good. And then that's like his defining characteristic. I'm not in the new Superman movies, but like traditionally, the thing about Superman is that he's like a boring but like almost infallibly good person. I mean, that's not his superpower is that, and not that he can like lift planets. And I love that is very appealing to me right now.
It sort of feels like something that we could use a lot more of these days.
Yeah, I'm into that as the thing that about Superman. When people say, "Oh, he has too many powers," yeah, he does. But like, he's such a good guy. Wouldn't you like to just hang out with Superman? Wouldn't you just like for Superman to tell you everything is going to be all right? I would believe him.
I would rather hang out with Superman than like I think any other superhero.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Batman just be kind of moody most of the time. And Aquaman, at least in the new Justice League movie, is just kind of a douche.
Okay,
by the way...
So you've seen Justice League, yeah.
Yeah, we should probably talk about that. Okay, so look, it's hard to talk about Justice League right now because it's a week later and everyone has seen all those memes by now. But yeah, it's embarrassing to watch. Superman doesn't look like a person most of the time because they CG'd his face because he had a mustache. And everyone's like, it can't really be that bad. That one picture that everyone keeps throwing around of it is probably pretty low quality. And no, it really is. It's really bad. I went to see it with Jess and Darren, and I was sitting next to Jess, and the first scene was Superman appears in like some someone's iPhone footage, and it's the most obvious it is throughout the entire movie because it's not like the lines aren't corrected. It looks like someone's face and then a different flesh color in the shape of a mustache is all up in there. And here's the thing, like if I didn't know about this aspect of the film going in, I still would have noticed that. That's the thing. Like this is not a nitpick. It's like kind of it's embarrassingly obvious. And I looked over at Jess and I'm like, look. And she's like, what? It's like, mustache. It's like, and that was the whole movie. Now, not every scene, but you can tell what was a reshoot and what was not by how real his face was per scene. And it was hard to watch because of that. The movie was supposed to be about 3 hours long, and then they gutted it by an hour, and it was 2 hours long, or a minute under 2 hours long. And it shows because the villain just kind of appears, and there isn't enough about him as a personality and about backstory of him so he just shows up like, I'm the bad guy, and they spend like 2 minutes talking about him, like, well, we got to go fight the bad guy, and it just makes him incredibly bland. It's hard to root for our heroes when the villain is not compelling at all. He's just like he looks so generic too. Yeah. He just looks like a guy with a helmet.
I haven't seen this film, but from what I understand, the villain is like Steppenwolf, who I've never heard of before, and who looks exactly like Thanos and Darkseid and Apocalypse and all like.
Well, he's considered to be one of like Darkseid's, I don't know, lackeys.
Something like that. He mentions Darkseid in passing. There are some like little Easter eggs. Like he mentions Darkseid once, and you see a Green Lantern in like a flashback. By the way, this is all spoilers for a while. Just deal with it. You shouldn't see this movie anyway. So it's. Okay, I
thought all of this was in the promotional material. Like I know Superman's in it, even though he's supposed to be dead. Like it's. I think that should be a spoiler, but this isn't so much a movie as it is kind of just like a commercial for a cinematic universe. Like everything's known, right? There's not any twists.
Well, here's the only twist. The only thing about Superman's inclusion in the film to me, I try to stay away from spoilers as much as possible. Even with movies I think are going to be shit. Because I like to be surprised. And we all knew that Superman was going to be in this movie, but in my mind, because I haven't really looked into any details about like how much, and I didn't want any spoilers, I wasn't sure how much he was going to be in the movie. Like there in my mind, like there's an outside chance he might show up at the end, and that's the big reveal. Or maybe he'll just show up like somewhere in the third act, and then Superman comes back and saves the day. But in reality, he's talked about a lot in the first half. And then the second half is just Superman. Superman, and he's brought back to life so casually. You know, they bring him back to life with mother boxes, or as Bruce and Clark call them, Martha boxes.
Ooh.
I can't tell. The thing is, I can't tell if you're joking.
No, I'm just playing. No. So anyway. I'm being a dick. Okay, so anyway, they bring him back. They're having like a class meeting, the Justice League. They're sitting there, and Bruce is like, "We can use the mother boxes to bring back Superman," and they're like, well, yeah, well, how? And they're like, well, you do this. And they explain it like so casually. Like there's a little bit of like disagreement about the morality of this, but basically like they act as if bringing someone back from the dead is just like a fun science experiment that they can do rather than like this monumental game-changing event. And it's just...
So,
and
can I just ask a quick question here? Does it have
go ahead.
Does it have anything to do with like is Superman being special, like him being Kryptonian? Does that have to do with anything, or are they just like, yeah, we could just like bring people back from the dead? Look, it
has something to do with... Bruce says something like, we don't know what state his body's in. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's dead. But I guess in the movie tries to like I said, they explain it, but they explain it so quickly.
I'm just curious because you remember at the end of Batman versus Superman, they were like, oh man, look, the soil on Clark's coffin is doing something weird.
There's no weird soil thing. Batman just says, with the mother boxes, this is the thing, what we can do.
That's
and then they do
dumb.
It. I know. Look, it doesn't look. It doesn't matter. The point is, Superman comes back. He briefly fights with the other Justice League, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a good guy." And then the rest of the movie is actually kind of interesting because I wouldn't say interesting, but Superman acts the way Superman normally should after that. After he's done punching the Flash, he like acts like Superman. He says he has like a couple corny lines that you would associate with Superman from previous Superman movies. Which is fine. I'm all about that. So that was neat. There's sort of like this, there's a narrative problem as this movie relates to the other DCEU movies. One, at the beginning of the film, they do this sort of montage where they try to explain that without Superman, the world is just shit. And here's the thing about that. Superman... In the timeline of this movie, like Superman only like showed up in the suit like a couple years ago. The world was fine before Superman and should more or less be the same post Superman death.
Except for the fact that lots of dads were dying in tornadoes trying to rescue dogs. Okay. That was like a huge thing before Superman.
You stop. So the point is, it doesn't make sense within the confines of this larger continuity. The other thing that doesn't make sense is, again, Superman had only been out Supermaning for like a year or two until he died, but everyone is just so bummed out about it. Like, there's a statue, and then they destroy a statue, and all the papers, even years later, are about how the fact that Superman is gone, and everyone is like, with a world without Superman, everyone has gone crazy.
But
and
he wasn't even,
dude,
he wasn't even publicly recognized as being a good thing in Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, he was around for a couple years, and his tenure was rather controversial.
Yeah, everybody was like, I don't know about this all-powerful alien dude. Might be a bad idea.
Yeah, so in this movie, it's sort of this like unearned part of that story. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, what movie were you watching? Because I saw all those movies, in some cases, multiple times. This doesn't make any sense. So it just seems so weird and out of place. And I realized, there are different directors, there are different writers, there are different people involved in this. I understand that, but if you're having a cinematic universe, it needs to be at least close enough to being cohesive that it's bizarre. It does not add up, and it's so unsatisfying that it's bothersome when I watch it. I could go on and on. The guy who plays Flash, a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, he's so funny, he's so cool. Well, he's like a good part of the movie." No, he's not. He's annoying and not funny. I mean, I'm sure the actor is a very nice person, but the character himself is like one of those Big Bang Theory characters. He just says a lot of stupid, nerdy shit, and we're supposed to find his awkwardness endearing, but he's actually kind of like, I don't care about him.
And he always adds extra words to scientific terms that don't need to be there. You see, in four-dimensional space... What other kind of space would I be talking about, doofus?
Okay. The point is, he's not good. The Aquaman character, they go hard on Aquaman. They're like, okay, Aquaman has been a big joke for about half a century now, so we need to make him the coolest character in the movie. But he's actually just kind of douchey, and like the movie just stops in one scene to watch shirtless Aquaman in slow motion drink a huge jug of booze while like a rock music plays, and then he just jumps into the ocean like it looks so bizarre.
I'm sorry, that actually kind of sounds awesome.
Let me tell you, it is more forced than the Punisher looking at the camera and saying,
"God's gonna sit this one out."
Yes. So no, it's exactly like that, except painfully longer. So anyway, there's that. Wonder Woman, like the character is fine, but Wonder Woman is good because the movie Wonder Woman was good. Wonder Woman in this movie is just a character in this bad movie.
Yeah, you want to see more of her because you're like acquainted with the character, right?
Yeah, that's kind of it. But she doesn't look. The movie Wonder Woman was pretty good. That doesn't mean that a character from a good movie in a bad movie makes the movie better. No. It just means that this character is, if anything, it tarnishes her. So no. Cyborg is like hella boring throughout the entire thing. And then at the end, when the villain dies, he triumphantly looks at the sky and says, "Booyah!" And I'm like, first of all, this is not 1994.
Holy
and
shit.
Second of all, do you think that that's just what? I don't know how to say this. Does the writer of this movie think that's just what black people say in 2017? Because I feel like that's not true. I went to this movie with a black person. I have never heard him say "booyah." This is ridiculous. I hated that. That was the kind of corniness that was embarrassing rather than endearing. So that was bad. Full spoilers. There's like a Superman races the Flash mid-credit scene without showing us a winner. I feel like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't mean to be a jerk about this, but the Flash is faster than Superman. I hate to put on my like geek cap here, but that's like established. And in fact, if the Flash is not faster than Superman, who cares about the Flash on this team? Because then it doesn't mean he's useless. He's just a much less powerful and less experienced Superman. So he has to be faster than Superman in order for him to be even remotely special or important to this team. You fuck this up completely in one scene. Why would you do that? And then there's a completely after credits scene where Lex Luthor shows up, and then he says, "I see God has risen." And I'm like, shut up. You spent that nickel. It's over. Stop calling Superman God and trying to pontificate about and try to make this deeper than it is. You're not good enough at it for you to do it. So stop.
Wait,
and then
they really got Jesse Eisenberg back?
Yeah, he was there. He'll be in a future movie, apparently.
Oh my God.
He must have signed a contract.
I can't anymore with that guy though.
Yeah, his head is shaved and he sits, or it's a bald cap. I don't honestly know. He sits there and he's like, "Ooh, God has returned. We need a league of our own." And then Deathstroke is, yeah, I know.
Does he actually say that?
Yes.
Oh my God.
That is, no, Johnny.
Brilliant. Oh.
Not.
The memes.
Johnny, you don't understand. That horrible line is not just in the movie. It's the last line of the movie, and then it stops, and then everyone left.
Oh, it's beautiful how how blissfully unaware of itself sometimes Hollywood can be.
How fucking good would it have been though, guys, if Jesse Eisenberg would have been like, "It looks like God has arisen," and then suddenly the Punisher is there, and he's like, "I think God's gonna sit this one out."
Oh my God! Right before he said it, there was like a little audience gasp. They were actually interested in this one thing in the movie. Right before he says that, Deathstroke shows up, And that's neat, I guess. We'll see. But the fact that Deathstroke is in this movie doesn't make the movie good or Deathstroke good. He's just there. He doesn't do anything. They're just setting up another movie, which is fine. They should. All right. That was just as...
So break it down for me, Leon. Where on the spectrum of the DC Expanded Universe Cinematic Edition does Justice League fall?
See, that's the weird thing, and I've been thinking about this. And I was trying to figure out if this is better or worse than Batman v Superman, because most people say this was better than Batman v Superman,
right?
Because it was more light. It's more watchable. It's lighthearted. There's less of it, so you don't have to sit through as much of it. And that makes sense.
Which is a weird compliment to a movie.
And it really is. But it kind of makes sense, except when you think about it this way: Batman v Superman, for all its terrible, terrible flaws, was a complete film. Even with the plot holes of the theatrical version, it still felt like it had a beginning and a
middle
and an
end. Which I believe
we
we very, very in excruciating detail managed to cover when I finally got around to seeing it.
Yeah. So Batman v Superman is a movie. I figured I could watch it and understand what was going on, and everything felt like they made it correctly. It was just bad when they put it together. Whereas Justice League feels like we were a test screen for a movie that wasn't finished yet. There was just huge gaping holes where we didn't know what was going on. It was very obvious that there were reshoots, like in sort of like ugly ways that I mentioned before. It didn't feel like it was done. I enjoyed myself more watching it, which I guess that means it's better. But as a movie, it's hard to say it's like better when it's not even done.
So what you're trying to say is it's no Suicide Squad.
I don't even know where I'd rank it. I guess here's the terrible thing about all of this. I mean, Wonder Woman is obviously the best.
Can we agree that Suicide Squad is probably the worst?
Yeah, I guess I would. I suppose Man of Steel is the second best, which sounds terrible, but
I have struggled. I do not know whether or not I like Man of Steel or Batman v Superman.
I laughed at Batman v Superman. I got real, genuine enjoyment out of it. It's not good, but I had fun. So if that counts for anything.
All right. I mean, it doesn't not count. If I had to rank these things, it would be Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League are vying for third place, and then Suicide Squad is just marginally below them. There's only one good one. Is the truth of it. Wonder Woman is good. I don't want to bash Wonder Woman. It's not a great film. It's just good. All right. And there's this gigantic love fest about Wonder Woman, but it's good. That's it. I'm sorry.
Leon, I know we're going to get messages about this, so I just want to say this so people could hear it said on this show. The Flash and Superman have raced a number of times in the comics, and they tied a bunch, and anytime one of them wins, it's the Flash.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Eventually, the Flash gets faster as the years go by. Flash becomes much faster. He's like almost impossibly fast, to the point that he can use his speed to go back in time and all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, like Superman did in that one movie, Superman.
Oh my God. So anyway, that was Justice League, and I'm sorry. I wouldn't say. I didn't hate watching it. I just hate that it exists, I guess, if that makes sense.
Is it more finished than The Snowman? That's a long pause. That's a long pause.
Yeah, that is. I expected a quicker reaction than that.
Yeah. I'll say yes, because they finished shooting the movie, and then they reshot it. And then they put it together in a way that it's not finished. Like they poured out two puzzles on the ground, and then they mooshed them together, but they not all the pieces fit, so there's a few spots that are missing.
Do you think it was improved by Joss Whedon? And can you tell?
I can't know that. I just can't know that unless they're not going to, unless there's a different version of the film that's ever released. I just can't know that because I don't know.
We're obviously going to get the 3-hour cut. The 3-hour cut is coming.
Nice.
I guess so, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the Zack Snyder cut. It's just going to be there's more stuff. So I can't know that, but Joss Whedon is a more competent director in that he takes less risks in the way his films look than Zack Snyder, but that means his movies will be consistently fine. Not great, but he's fine. Zack Snyder shoots for the moon and doesn't reach. So, yeah. All right. Anyway, I don't know if that makes him better or worse. I will say worse. Yeah. Okay. Done. I'm done talking about Justice League. Okay. I spent a lot of time on this. Sorry.
Yeah, this is a comics heavy episode. I didn't expect that, but I guess I should.
Yeah. I don't know. I could say more about other things, but Johnny, do you have anything you'd like to?
Weirdly enough, I had my own Superman moment this week.
Let's hear it.
I discovered this year that summertime is not really a very great time to play with the VR headset. You get sweaty, you're moving around, it's not good. It's just it's kind of gross. But the weather has cooled now. So I've had time to put my Rift back on again. And this week I finally got around to messing around with Google Earth VR. You guys, I never thought that one of the most fun things that I could do in virtual reality was fuck around with an atlas. But it is so much fun. It is so messed up. Because it just presents you with a 3D model of the world, and you could just fly anywhere you want. And that was what I did for hours this week, was come home from work, put on my Oculus Rift, and just fly around the world looking at shit. And I went to the strangest places. I found the Double R Diner from Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
I creeped outside Austin's house.
How was it?
You live in a greener neighborhood than I thought.
What's the color? Because the grass, or
yeah, because the grass. It was, there were trees and things like that. For some reason, I expected it to be a little bit more swampy. You know?
Okay, I see what you're saying. No, Tallahassee's a city.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't look as moist as I pictured in my head.
Nice.
Because the only parts of Florida I've been to are down on the coast.
I mean, there is literally a lake in my backyard, but go.
Yeah. There's a couple of other cool things that I'm not gonna say because that would give away where your neighborhood is.
You're gonna triangulate me. Although saying I have a lake in my backyard makes it sound good, it's waterfront property, but no, it's it's a runoff from industrial waste or some shit.
You can tell from the color when I was hovering above it the other day that I was that doesn't look good.
No one would.
That
ever
looks
go
like
in there.
a particular odor accompanies it.
Not that I've noticed, but yeah, nothing's in there, so it's bad. But anyway,
all right.
You've creeped on Leon, and
I creeped on Leon. I creeped on Dant. I creeped on a whole bunch of childhood friends that have moved around. I flew over Las Vegas. I stood on the top of Mount Everest. I just bombed through the Grand Canyon.
You see any good dogs?
I what?
Do you see any good dogs?
I did not. I saw no good dogs. No. I saw a lot of half of people.
What? Excuse me?
When you get down to Street View and things like that, and it's obviously that person was running when they took the second photo. So you get half a person.
Oh, I see.
And then, like, a little ways longer, you see their legs, and it's like, oh, I get it. Yeah.
I
Okay.
thought there was just like a bunch of people who've been bisected, and you just okay.
No, only by the photos,
Got
not
it.
like physically bisected. But yeah,
That'd
you
be
can,
a
like,
wild coincidence, huh? If you just happen to stumble upon a bunch of halved bodies.
I wouldn't know. I mean, how could you really tell?
Hmm.
It would shake the foundations of my reality. But you
The
can,
perfect
zoom all the way
crime.
out to super high orbit where you can just by looking at the Earth, you can see it like top to bottom. And you can like drag it around and change the time of day and stuff like that, and then just like a bullet, man, from heaven, just zoom right down, and then boom, you're standing on top of Cristo Redentor outside of fucking Rio de Janeiro. And then you can jump off of Jesus and like fly to fucking Florida, which is when I creeped on you, Austin. It's so weird. Like, cause it made me, the way I described it to my buddy was, it makes me feel like the ghost of Superman. Cause it's like you can literally like fly around the world and more or less almost go to these places, right? But you still can't like interact with anybody. So you can hover outside your buddy's house and be like, oh my god, it's kind of like I'm almost there. But then you're not. And like everything is like deathly quiet, and there's this like happy little Google Earth music playing in the background, and you're like, this is kind of soothing, but also a bit creepy. Like I went back to some neighborhoods that I grew up in when I was a child. And that was kind of strange. Just like dropping in on your old neighborhood and being like, whoa, that was my bedroom. I wonder what's in there now. Or like, seeing trees that the last time you saw them were like, about as tall as you were, and then going back and suddenly discovering they're like 3 times your height now. It was, yeah, it's weird, but it's fun and interesting. And I went to like some fucking, like, Tokyo's crazy. Tokyo is an absolutely crazy city when viewed from like a few hundred or 1,000 feet up. Like, it's massive. Yeah, and you can do all these things, like, when you start it out, like any other VR experience, it's like all of the bells and whistles are kind of like turned off, where it's like you can only get so close to the ground, and whenever you move, it like does this tunnel vision thing to stop you from getting sick, but it took me like 10 minutes to find all that shit and turn it off! And then you can actually do it so that like everything stays to scale as like human, so you can actually like plant yourself right down on the ground. And, like, you get, like, closer and closer to these things like the Statue of Liberty or fucking, like, the Empire State Building, and you're like, is that, no, okay, I can get a little closer, I can get a little closer, and just the scale of some of this stuff is just staggering. It's, like, it's weird because you think it feels like you're playing a video game, and then all of a sudden you realize that it's actually, like, the Earth. It was crazy fun. I don't know what to say. And then I watched a weird VR short about being a 911 dispatcher.
I was hoping this was going to end with you saying, like, okay, I went on VR Earth, and I looked around, and then I looked in Austin's window, and I just saw his whole butt. Just the whole butt was out. I was really excited when I gave you my address. I was like, I'm really psyched for this butt conversation, because my butt's always out.
There was a distinct lack of butt.
One would hope it's not.
Well, I shouldn't say a distinct lack of butt, because I was in Spain on a beach in Mallorca, and it wasn't in a prope's butt, like it was clothed butt. I wasn't like creeping on no nude beaches or anything like that, but there was definitely butt. But it was contextually appropriate butt. Yeah.
That's my favorite kind. So you guys want to get into questions, or is there anything else?
I felt like there was something else, but I'm
There's a couple of things that happened this week. There's a new Animal Crossing game for mobile phones. I played it. It's Animal Crossing, which is pretty good. It's just Animal. That's the whole thing. Like, that's my entire review. It's Animal Crossing again.
So, crippling debt?
It's optional debt now with real money or not. It depends on you. It's just like you pick fruit and you give it to animals and then they like you. It's fine. It's if you played Animal Crossing, you played it. It's fine. That's
I haven't. I just, for some reason, there's this weird association in my brain that every Animal Crossing starts out with like a massive amount of debt.
No, yeah, I mean, usually do. That's Tom Nook's whole thing. In this game, it's I think they're penguins. There's 3 penguins, and they trick out your camper, and you can take out a loan with them. But you don't need to, as far as I can tell. That just makes your camper's interior bigger. You can just pick fruit and fish and catch bugs, and then trade them for happiness meter points or whatever, which unlocks more things to make, which lets you make the animals like you more, which unlocks more things to make, etc. ad nauseum.
I get you.
Yeah. That's that whole thing. What else? There's a new Dungeons and Dragons book, Zanna, Thar's Guide to Everything, which came out. I got that. It's very, very slight. It's like half the size of the previous smallest 5th edition book.
So it's not about everything.
It's not, no. What it is, because like the 3 main books are DM Guide, Player Guide, Monster Manual, and then they did an expansion to the Monster Manual, Volo's Guide to Monsters, which I talked about before. This one is kind of an expansion to the Player's Handbook, because it's mostly class stuff, like new subclasses for the main classes, and those are fine. But that doesn't take up a lot of real estate, and they really, really, really pad the book out with things like 20 pages of character names, just like, I don't know, John.
So
Amy.
Xanathar's Guide to some things.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too much shit about it because it is super useful, because once you've played the main 12 classes, it can feel kind of stale. It's like either you hit things with a sword or you do a fireball, and this kind of like blows it out in a fun way, and I'm glad that stuff's in print when it was previously just on the internet. So I'm glad I have it, and it's fine. It just doesn't feel like they had enough quite for a whole book, which is a shame, and there's no new monsters, which is really what I want most out of this stuff, because I like cool pictures of cool monsters. So I'm happy to support Wizards, because it's hard to monetize that game. But
I'm sorry. No,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I was looking away for a second, and then I came back, and then you just said, "I'm happy to support Wizards." And I was like, okay,
yeah,
that's cool.
Wizards need your support.
Yeah. Speaking of Wizards of the Coast, the company that publishes Dungeons and Dragons, they're also publishing...
Incidentally, Wizards need food badly.
They do. They're also publishing a new weird Magic the Gathering set. It's the 3rd comedy set they've done, but the first 2 they did over a decade ago. It was Unglued and Unhinged were the first 2, like 12 years ago, and this new one's called Unstable. And I wasn't excited because the other 2 are kind of lame. Like there's a couple funny jokes in there, but they're mostly like goofy humor for like middle school boys. But this one is actually like legit funny and good, and like a lot of work went into it, and it's hard to explain like on a podcast what makes it cool. I think you should just go look at like the cards. I posted some on Twitter, but there's also just their website and a million Magic sites. But like they made an actual functional game you'd want to play, and it just so happens that they're goofy, and there's like a lot of cards with like squirrels on them doing weird squirrel shit, and there's like mix and match animals, like half shark, half pony, and it's just like it's a good time, and it'd take longer to explain than is worth it for people who don't know anything about the game. But I was pleasantly surprised by that. That's another thing that came out this week. And also there's this isn't that new, but I haven't talked about it with Johnny. There's a new Primus album.
Oh.
The Desaturated 7. Primus, and we could do a whole show just on this, but they've done the reverse arc of every other band. Most bands, they hit the mainstream and they kind of do their thing for a while, and then they kind of sell out and get boring. Primus has just gotten weirder and weirder and weirder. They're like trying as hard as possible to alienate people, and it's fascinating. Their new album is so fucking weird. I have no possible way I could describe it with my words. You just kind of have to hear it. It's bizarre, even for them. And they have albums like Pork Soda and Sailing the Seas of Cheese. It's just like They're a weird fucking band, and they just keep getting weirder.
I still love it that one of their albums was they just decided to cover Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
They did an entire album that was nothing but Chocolate Factory hits. They're wild, and I don't know how anyone lets them release music. I guess they probably have their own label at this point. Who would sign them? I don't know, but yeah, that's a thing. I haven't seen anybody talking about that. I guess it's not a huge pop sensation, but I'm still keeping up with them. You like Primus, Johnny? I assume.
I do. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like their biggest fans. I don't, I don't buy every album that comes out, but like every, 7 or 8 years or something like that, I poke my head in and go, "What's up, guys?" And
Yeah. Green Naugahyde, I think, was underrated. That was like an album or two ago, and I think that was like their last. Their last real attempt to like make something that could conceivably be played on a radio. And then they were just like, fuck it. Just absolutely fuck it. And I don't know. I don't even know if I like the Desaturated 7. I just heard the hit single off it. I said hit. I meant lead, because it's obviously not a big hit. The lead single off it, and I was just like, what the fuck?
I will have to look into it.
It's so weird. But yeah, that's recent things I have written in my sticky note that I checked out. So I've talked about Primus, Xanathar, Unstable, Animal Crossing, and Punisher. So I'm out of things. Leon, what are those prime choice USDA A-grade questions?
I feel
here at Word Funk
you're
Farms,
hyping this.
We do our best to foster a situation in which the growth of your questions meets our best standards. Hand-picked by our question inspectors at the firm ripe peak of the season. These questions will tickle your funny bone and bring a smile to your lips.
Okay, you guys are hyping this up way too much. I just meant that it's been a long time since I've been the one who did questions, and half of them are just not things we can do. That's literally all I meant. But okay, this one's fun, and I think Austin will like this one. Creature asks, which animal should definitely also exist in a much larger or much smaller size?
That is a very good question. Oh, I love this. So there's a bunch of big animals that I really want to pet, but they're too big. Like elephants and giraffes definitely come to mind. Oh, hippos. Can you shrink hippos so I can pet them? That's definitely what I want. What do I want to make bigger?
Flying squirrels.
All right.
Yeah. There's a lot of small rodents like guinea pigs and hamsters and stuff that they're very scared because they're so small.
Look, if you
and
want a
delicate.
big guinea pig, just get yourself a capybara.
I would like to, yeah. Ideally, that would be possible. Rabbits? How big can a rabbit get before it's like not scared of people? Because they're so skittish, and I worry about them.
I think it would be great if instead of just an entire like gigantic industry of like raising cows for us or raising chickens for us, there's just one cow, and it's the size of a planet, and we just occasionally carve off little pieces for it, and he's fine with it, like it's whatever.
So there's the solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse, and the beef eclipse.
I feel like
Bovine eclipse.
there would be a pig and a cow and a chicken that sort of like orbit our planet. I'm not sure what that would.
Let's just assume they can breathe.
Look.
Everything.
We'll look. I feel like if we have the technology to make that happen in general, we can also figure out the breathing situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not a naturally occurring giant space cow.
No.
I just wanted to clarify here because I was imagining like a deep impact situation where like the NASA scientist is at the monitor and he's like, my God, and then you see him like running down the hallway with a bunch of papers and you're not sure where he got them because he didn't have a printer in that office. Then he like runs into a guy's office and he's like, sir, you have to, and he's on the phone. He's like, not now, Jenkins. He's like, but sir, and then slams papers down on the desk and he's like, my God.
No, this was like a terrible science experiment that like a black ops government decided to put together because like it's just inhuman. We pissed in the eye of God and he blinked. So
what you're doing is basically drafting the script for Rampage 2. starring The Rock again.
Yeah, I saw that trailer when I was watching Justice League. He's in the same place and wearing the same outfit as he is in Jumanji 2. So maybe it's the same movie. I don't know. But yeah, that's my...
I saw that, and it looked like it could be a good movie, but I'm confused to why they didn't just go with the original premise of Rampage, which is that all of the big monsters are just people that have been, like, magic, or maybe it was a potion or something. In this one, the monkey's just a monkey.
No, the monkey is, like, genetically enhanced, just like the people have been transformed in some way. It's just that they were always that animal. They're just now, like, a scary version of that animal. With, science magic. That's
what I'm saying. It's not a person to animal, it's animal to bigger animal. Yeah. I just think it's...
Leon, are you aware of the fact that Rampage is a video game?
Yes, of course. I played that game.
I just think they're missing out on the fucking amazing climax of, at the end, The Rock transforms into a giant animal and fights the other one.
Okay. I mean, that might happen.
Although,
you know...
Yeah, not necessarily off the table now that I said that out loud.
That could be, like, the twist. Like, and then he gets big and he's like, the real animal was me the whole time. And it's like, oh, okay. So, good question.
That's why they call him Dwayne the Animal Johnson.
It is. Okay. Next question might just be for me, unless you guys have seen it as well. Tell us your Coco thoughts, please. Did any of you go to the theater to see Coco this week?
Nah.
Okay, no, that's fine. It is Pixar's new movie. I like it because in addition to it being a very Pixar movie, it is also it has like songs in it, which Pixar normally does not do. That's normally like a Disney Prime kind of thing, to have like a bunch of songs in it. But it's very much a movie that's like about music. So that it had.
So is it because I love using this word here.
Yeah.
Diegetic?
No, the guy. I mean, he has to sing. It's part of the narrative. He doesn't just start singing like it's in a musical. He's at musical competitions and things like that. So that is why it's part of it. It's fine for about 2/3 of it, and then the third act has. I'm not going to spoil it, but there are twists, and they are good twists, and it made it a lot more compelling, and I liked it. So yeah. Solid effort. I would recommend it. Yeah, good. Let's see. What is our next artisanal question? This one Johnny might like. We're getting all of us. I might have some things to say about it too. Most misguided social commentary in an episode of Star Trek.
I can do this one too.
Okay.
The episode where Spock gets so horny he almost dies. I think that sends a bad message about sexuality. If you don't want to fuck, you don't have to fuck. It's fine.
You know, it is true that a lot of the Star Trek episodes about sexuality just kind of like,
Yeah.
They don't quite get there, you know?
I just think that episode is very offensive to asexual and Volcel people. Just like let people live.
Yeah. The worst sex thing in Trek to me ever was a first season episode of TNG in which Tasha Yar is kidnapped by a guy who basically wants to force her to be married to him, which is, I shouldn't even have to explain how horrible that is. That's terrible. And he's not like, you will be my beautiful bride. Ha ha ha. It's like sexual violence. And it's terrible. And but that's not the worst part. The worst part is that like, she talks about it towards the end and she's like, yeah, I mean, I was flattered. No, she wasn't. Okay. That is the worst possible. No one is flattered when someone kidnaps them to force them into a romantic, I'm using finger quotes when I say romantic, situation. That is horrible. And it's like, I hate it so much. So that's probably it for me. That was probably my most, that's the worst, social misstep of Star Trek for me. Sorry, I can't make that funny. It's just gross.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It was pretty gross. I remember the episode that takes place at Star Trek Academy, right? where one of Wesley Crusher's classmates gets into an accident flying the shuttles.
Yeah.
And then, like, Wesley rats him out, and they're like, you did the right thing, Wesley, and they kick a guy out, and it's the worst social message because snitches get stitches! Fuck you, Crusher! Keep your goddamn mouth shut!
Oh, my. Okay.
No, I mean, that's obviously I'm joking.
Yeah.
That's not the worst one,
Yeah,
you know.
I know.
But, God, I don't know. It's probably something in the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. You know, the ones where, like, yeah, you know, I just feel like Trek never really nailed sexuality properly.
Yeah, they tried, and when they tried to go a little further with things like, for example, there's an episode where Riker is attracted to an androgynous person.
Right, but they super codify the character as being, like, really female.
Yeah. He Jonathan Frakes has stated that he wanted a character to be played by a man, and he wanted him to have the first big gay kiss, and that was shot down. Which
would have been a very Star Trek thing to do.
Yeah, but the concept was shot down, and so they tried. I don't know. It could have been better. Yeah, I mean, we did get spoilers for Discovery, but we got our gay kiss. It just took a hell of a long time. There you go.
Also, what's their anti-tribble stance? I can't get behind that. Tribbles are adorable. What's everyone's problem?
They were the mortal enemy of the Klingon Empire for a long time because all they do is eat and fuck, and
hell yeah, that's the life.
Yeah, but that's like, no, because he apparently destroyed their resources. I guess that's not a great message. I don't know.
We're doing that. We're doing that anyway. Like that feels like that's inevitable. Might as well eat and fuck on the way out.
Okay,
guys.
Yeah.
Weren't we the tribbles all along?
I wish.
Okay. Oh my.
There's like 3 things I know about Star Trek, and every time it gets brought up, I find some way to crowbar them in there.
Jesus. Okay. Let's see. Oh, by the way, that question. Go back here. I didn't say their names, and I'm sorry. I'm not used to this. Melissa asked the Coco question, and thank you for that, Melissa. And James asked the Star Trek question, so thank you for that. This is actually another one from James. It's actually really good. Favorite depiction of hell? I got mine right away, so like.
I'm kind of like, I'm on this tip right now, but I sort of feel like saying it would be a spoiler.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to say mine. The one from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Because, I mean, yeah, it's like a personalized hell, and that sucks. But, like, as a person who, like, due to, like, an anxiety disorder, relives a lot of embarrassing shit that I do all the time, it's like, whatever. Like, yeah, I can relive like my most uncomfortable day over and over again, and that's all the time. And also, it just seems like you can get out really easily. You can just beat the Grim Reaper in a game of like Twister, which you're definitely going to win. He's Bones. So it just seems like that's not a hard hell to get out of. So like if someone said you're going to hell and it's the Bill and Ted one, it's like, oh, it's fine. Okay, we'll just it's not a thing. They get out in like 10 minutes, I think.
Now, was the question the best hell in any particular medium?
It just says favorite depiction of hell. You can take it any way you want.
Yeah, because I was trying to rack my brain for a movie, and most movies are just kind of like your general fire and brimstone, except for maybe What Dreams May Come, which I know we talked about is kind of a deplorable movie politically, but I think its depiction is pretty. I fucked up that sentence. I should have said something else.
It's okay.
But the thing, if I had to pick one, I would think the artwork of Hieronymus Bosch is probably
okay.
my favorite.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
not confident. That's my answer now. But I know there's another one I'm not thinking. There's probably like a really non-traditional one where it's just like the weight, like Beetlejuice, right? I don't know if that's supposed to be hell, but what they were in basically the DMV or something like that. There's something like that. I think is probably like if I really dug down into my brain and found it. But like traditional hell, like pitchforks and fire and screaming and stuff, is probably Hieronymus Bosch.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it, but you can go ahead and beep this out
Okay.
because I'm vibing so hard on it right now.
That's
But The Good Place.
Okay. I haven't seen it, so
Okay.
you're not spoiling anything
Yeah.
for me.
Okay, all right, yeah. Their depiction of hell is just cherry.
All right.
Yeah, I'm only vaguely aware of that show. Everyone says it's really good. I don't know if we're cutting all this.
You've got to watch it. It is superb.
I've heard, yeah.
Okay.
I think we answered that question, huh?
We sure did. We can do one more. I'm trying to find one that's okay. Like, there's. I'm not trying to be a jerk about this, but someone were like, "Tell us about your favorite film musicals," and that sounds cool. But like, I feel like haven't we done that before?
I mean, we're all just going to say Hamilton, and if someone says something else, I'm going to yell Hamilton over them.
Do they have that on film yet?
Oh, it was a film all I heard of
Yeah.
musicals.
No, you're wrong, Austin. Your Hamilton is wrong, and you should be ashamed. So favorite film musicals. Yeah, we can do this. This is from.
Okay.
His name is I Have Had It with These Monk. Yeah, you know what? You made your Twitter name too long, and now it cut off. This is what you did. You ruined it. You ruined it, and it's over. But anyway, this person whose name doesn't matter now.
Damn. I mean, Leon, you're just mad. You're just mad because you know the answer is La La Land.
No. Favorite film musical. It's and this is kind of like a dumb answer, but it's true. Like my favorite musical films are probably like Disney musicals. I'm not. I mean, I kind of liked My Fair Lady when I was younger, and I guess The Wizard of Oz is a movie musical, and I like that movie.
Yeah.
I'm just a lot of the big musical movies that everyone says are great are movies that I just like despise, like Rent and Chicago and La La Land.
And the Blues Brothers, which is my answer.
Yeah, I don't like Blues Brothers either.
I know, because you're sick. You have a sickness deep inside you.
It's fine. Johnny, do you have something? You're a theater
Oh,
person.
yeah, absolutely. John Carney's Once.
Okay.
Never heard of that.
It's a very Johnny answer that we don't know what it
It
is.
fulfills both the requirement of being a movie musical and also my musical tastes, because the stars of the movie Once are Glenn Hansard and Marketa Erglova, who were famous as a band for a very short time, and a couple called The Swell Season. They won the Oscar that year for Best Original Song. The Once came out for the song Falling Slowly. No. Anyway, Glenn Hansard was part of a band called The Frames, Irish band called The Frames for many, many years, and then decided he wanted to expand his writing repertoire and started writing music with Marketa Erglova, and they have this movie called Once. That's the serious answer. The not-so-serious answer is Repo, a genetic opera, because it's baller.
I like that one song from it, and that is it.
There's a couple. There's the one banger, and then there's a couple low-key bangers. What about none of it? No one's gonna say Willy Wonka. Is that just how this show is now?
That's a good one too. Yeah, okay. There are a few, I suppose. Yeah.
I said Blues Brothers because I thought someone else was gonna say Willy Wonka, and then I panicked because no one else said Willy Wonka.
Yeah, it's a very good one. Here's the thing about Willy Wonka. I mean, I love the movie, but I don't love the songs. None of the Oompa Loompa songs are good. I'm sorry, they're all bad. All the Oompa Loompa songs are bad.
They're fine for what they are.
Okay, I mean, all right. Here's the question. Here's the question for you when it comes to songs from movies, Austin. Mm-hmm. Would you listen to that song on its own? Like,
not the Oompa Loompa songs, but pure imagination, probably.
Yeah, that one. It has that one song, just like Repo Genetic Opera. I'm not a big fan of Cheer Up Charlie. It's not the worst song I've ever heard, but it's like, this is the time to fast forward, isn't it?
Every time someone says the name of a song from Willy Wonka, I'm gonna need you to edit in the Primus version. Oh, that's gonna be very funny to the three people who actually go through the work of listening to them. Anyway. Yeah. So, I think we did a show this week.
Yeah, we did it.
Against all odds.
Yeah. Anything you guys want to say before we go?
Do you know what's one other thing about the movie Once that I really like?
Yeah.
It's diegetic.
Cool. You do love that word a lot. I think there's probably a bunch of stuff I forgot to say about the Punisher. I was all like excited. I had like a million points to make, and then at the end, I kind of just was like, "He shoot the guy good." But one thing did occur to me while we were talking afterwards, which is there's a scene in Warzone where the bad guys recruit a bunch of henchmen for the final showdown, and it is very explicitly used as a kind of parallel to Iraq war propaganda. Like, he makes a speech in front of an American flag, and they talk about how, we're going to promise them college education, but this doesn't matter because they're going to die anyway. And it's like, I mean, Alexi Alexander, who directed that film, is extremely liberal, and it shows. And I thought, like, a liberal take on the Punisher sounds lame. It's like, I just gonna solve crime with feelings or something. But Warzone is that, and it's actually way more brutal than the other depictions. And there's a lot there, and I feel like there's like an essay or something to be written about that movie.
Yeah.
It's a weird movie. Mm-hmm. Like, it's strange how, and I remember how quickly it passed out of popular view when it came out.
Yeah.
But I went back and watched it again like 2 years ago or something like that, and it was stranger than I remembered.
Well, it came out like within a month or so of The Dark Knight, which was a phenomenal mistake from a marketing perspective, and it also just didn't have... they're not comparable, like, in any way, besides the fact that they both have origins in comic books, and it just reflects so poorly on Warzone, which if you divorce them, I think they're both enjoyable in their own way, but they were just inevitably going to be compared, and it fucking sank that film.
Audience, if you want me to talk about the politics of Punisher Warzone, there's only one way to do that. so you know that. Throwing that out there. Before we go, Austin, as my lawyer.
Okay, yeah, I love this sentence. This is going to end very well.
Quick thoughts on the Pope corpse trial.
Oh my God, I've heard about this, but I have to. So there's a couple of things from history that are like amazing that I wish I could just talk about just like at a drop of a hat. The other one is there's a famous defenestration where someone got thrown out of a window. Do you guys know about that?
I know what it means, but like what
I
is famous?
I am deeply acquainted with every famous defenestration.
Okay, so I'm not prepared to talk about the famous thing where that Leon's talking about,
That's fine.
the cadaver trial.
I just wanted to say it.
Yeah, it's very good. And there's a couple other things like that from history that are super weird. I bet that there are some history podcasts out there that'll probably do a better job than I could, but now I want to look up what the famous defenestration was. Anyway, someone keep talking. Vamp for me.
Oh, okay.
I think this weekend I might unveil the results of Project Horrorbeard.
Ooh. Everyone.
I think I'm done. I think it's like, this is as good as it's going to get, which is not very good.
Okay, everyone remember to follow Johnny on Twitter. It's @Scatterbrains. I assume that's where it's going to be. So
that's where it's going to happen, folks.
Yeah. This is the tease. This entire podcast is just a tease to that. That's all there is to it.
The historical event I was referring to is called the Defenestrations of Prague. And it's a famous thing where someone got through. There's two separate defenestrations where people were thrown out of windows, and they, according to Wikipedia, precipitated the 30 Years' War. So, like, these guys got thrown out the window so hard that it started a war. History is very good.
Wow. That's great.
But yeah, the Pope thing is like a Pope died and they dug him up and then they were like, this guy was bad, and I don't know. It's complicated and there's politics, but
yeah, someone wanted to say that one of the popes wanted to say that this guy wasn't even really the Pope because he cheated his way into the papacy, and other people were like, well, so what? And then he was like, let's get his corpse. And he just did it, and apparently that counts. I think here's the thing: the verdict was
that counts as what?
That counts as true in the eyes of God. But then it was later this corpse trial. The result was overturned later which is a thing I read about earlier today because I wanted to talk about this very briefly on this dumb show.
I mean, the popes can basically just make up the rules as they go along, right? They
Yeah.
can just Calvin ball basically anything they want, and they definitely have throughout history. So
Yeah, he didn't even need to dig up the corpse. He could have just said it. But
no, that's some Jude Law young pope shit.